My name is Ryan Harrell, and I'm going to be presenting my topic, which is the importance of clothing and music throughout the and its importance throughout the films that we have watched. So to begin with, I wanted to talk about The Much Ado About Nothing and the clothing of that movie. It's it's not really accurate because whenever the people come in, whenever the in the beginning when the guys come in at the battle well, and they're victorious and they're going in with all the glamour and stuff, they're not exactly dressed for battle per se. I mean, you'll see them come in and you'll see them victorious and you'll see them all happy and stuff. After a battle of that, and that's especially in that time period, you wouldn't see how the movie really portrays them. Like the movie portrays them in a way that seems that it glorifies battle. When in doubt, it shouldn't. And also the ladies of the movie, their clothing really seems to be minimum to none, and I think that shows off the purity of the ladies, and it's supposed to set a personality because most of these girls they're wanting to get married, and most of them, if not all of them, are pure. They're pure thinking, or most of them are, and the music also stands out because the music, for an example, the music. If they didn't have any music whenever they rode in after the battle, the victorious kind of music that was playing, that it wouldn't set the tone for the movie. Like music is an important factor in any kind of movie because it sets the tone and it helps establish a mood for the audience to get an eye to. The intense love scenes or the intense talk about scenes in Much Ado About Nothing, you don't if there wasn't any kind of music or anything, it wouldn't have as much effect on us as it would with music playing. So, and also, I personally feel like they could have done much better with the clothing because the clothing also helps establish the tone and what time period you're in to catch a glimpse and idea of what's going on around you and also the language. Now I wanted to get on to the next film, which is the Midsummer Night Dream. I kind of felt this was weird because it's set during Shakespearean language, but it's set in the 1800s. And I thought that was really confusing because Shakespeare didn't live into the 1800s. But the music and the clothing in that film was much better compared to Much Ado About Nothing because I felt like they didn't even try anything with the clothing in Much Ado About Nothing. And also, the Midnight Summer's Dream deals with the more Celtic approach, the more appeal to nature, and that also affects the music and also the props and clothing that they wear. There's a huge distinguished reality between the Celtic or the fairy people compared to the people that are from, Victorian area cities. You see their clothing compared to the Celts or, the fairies, and there's a huge distinction, and it also sets the tone of the story because you get to see who is who, you get to keep up with who is who, and also the props of the story. You see a lot of feathered with the fairies. You see a lot of feathered and knitted clothing, and you see a lot of knitted like beds. While in Victorian, England or wherever they are, you see a lot of you see a lot of more handmade stuff. You see, more industrialized props. You see the bicycles, you see the roads, you see the carriages, you see mostly everything in industrialized society you would think there is. Like, you see cameras of the late 1800s. You see, the clothing, you see the elaborate dresses, you see the big dresses. But then you get into the music and it's also a huge distinguish between the music when whenever the movies is shifting between, the streets of Paris or wherever they are. to the forest, you can also see a huge difference. And like I said, that sets a tone for the movie, because if you did not see any kind of, you know, music or hear any kind of music while this was going on, some people wouldn't catch interest immediately. Some people would, it's like silent films back in the 1920s and the 1910s. Many people did not, yeah, it was very high tech for the time, but people over time understood the importance of music in their movies because it sets a tone and it keeps people interested and hooked onto the story, compared to films that are not don't have anything like that. And I really feel that The Midnight Summer's Dream, if they did not have any kind of music or any kind of basis of music, it wouldn't have done as well compared to, some silent films. Or because even in the 1930s version, there was a lot of music that it was more chorused. It was more classical type music, and that really sets the tone for the story, because you go from a late Gilded Age industrialized society to back to your Celtic, your fairy type roots, to your more traditional roots, and that affects the story tremendously. And that's a huge part of the story, I would say, is that you're going from that people are forgetting their roots during this time period and becoming more and more industrialized. Nature we're getting further and further away from nature, and the music also helps establish that, because you go from probably the Gilded Age, which is the late 1800s, like you go from like the jazz type feel, the late jazz type feel, to like the classical. And even in the intense love scenes of Midsummer's Night Dream, you can see a lot. Even the music sets the tone, because you see the girl that obsesses over the person, or over, I believe, Claudius. She talks about, she's jealous of one of the characters, and you see how embarrassed, or not really embarrassed, but doesn't really believe in herself, and the tone and the music starts playing, and that really affects her. But I also wanted to get into The Merchant of Venice, and just how beautiful and the clothing and the music is, because it really gets you into the tone of more into the society of the Italian Renaissance, compared to Midsummer Night's Dream, and Much Ado About Nothing, because you see the clothing and you see the obvious differences between the higher and upper and middle class. And then you also see the discrimination with the Jewish people, with them wearing the red hats. You can also see a clear difference there. And then the music also sets you the tone of the movie, because it's more on beauty. In the Italian Renaissance, they focus on a lot of beauty aspect because of the art and all the stuff that is pushing out of Florence. And you see all that type of architecture, the clothing, you see the lavish clothing. You see, even in the courtesans of the time period, you even see how lavishly clothed they are, especially in Venice. Venice is really known for their architecture. And the music sets a tone, because you see in high moments there's more vocal type music, and in low moments you see sad music, because whenever the Jewish the main character that was Jewish, or the character that was Jewish, he whenever he was crying about his daughter, the music got really sad. And the and the you see the upper class, and you see what they wear and how they dress, and then they're really flaunting their status compared to the Jewish people. The Jewish people seem more humbled, with them wearing black and sometimes red, even though they lend money. But even understanding the historical significance of these films really helps. It helps you understand the language of. It really helps you understand the Shakespearean language and some parts of these scenes, like especially during the Merchant of Venice scene, where the Duke or the not the Duke, but the Doge of Venice or the government of Venice, the Republic, is going through this proceeding about getting his, with the main, the Jewish character getting his pound of flesh. You really see that. You really see if you understand most of what is going on and you understand how the legal system works for that time period, it really helps you understand what's going on in the film compared to people that don't. So, in conclusion, I believe that these three films are great films, but they would not be as good as they were or as important as they were if they did not have, music, a good type of music. If they didn't have any music or any kind of clothing, like if they did not have any kind of, if they didn't have as much importance, you know, and detailing and importance in clothing, because you really see that in the Much Ado About Nothing film compared to the Merchant of Venice, where you really see all this elaborate clothing and you see the effect. But I believe that that is the most important thing, is that the music is also sets its own, and it's a very important factor in any kind of film you make. You want to have a good music setup, and then secondly, you want to have a good acting setup. You really want to have people that know what they're doing and they have the experience. The same way it goes with music, because music is an important factor in any kind of thing you do. All right, thank you.